every time we think it gets calm in Ottawa, every time every time we think, okay, things have settled down in Ottawa, they're unsettled again, Bruce. And all of a sudden we have, Christopher George and Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future and Jacques Martin behind the bench.
Well, and you know what? Like I thought when Michael Andlauer took over that things, quite frankly, would settle down. But he's dealing with some situations, I think, John, that he didn't anticipate having to deal with, not the least of which was firing general manager Pierre Dorion after that decision came down about the botch trade with the Vegas Golden Knights over Evgeny Dadonov and having to forfeit a first round pick, the Shane Pinto gambling situation, which they really didn't know about until late in training camp, and quite frankly, right when they were about to sign him to a 2-year, $4.2 million deal. And now the team has gone sideways, and as you say, the change of head coach with Jacques Martin back behind the bench here for the first time since 2004, and Daniel Alfredson moving in as an assistant. There has never been a dull moment here. It feels a little bit insane.
So Alfredson and Martin. So Alfredson's behind the bench for the 2 games in Sweden. And then Martin gets hired as a consultant. You can't help but think now there was a bit of a conspiracy. You can't help think now that, Steve and Michael were putting guys in place for that, just in case moment. Can you?
Well, I think one of the things that happened was, I think, and even DJ Smith said this to some extent yesterday when I spoke to him after being fired. I think one of the things that Alfredson and people behind that bench would tell you is that it was a little chaotic, and chaotic in the fact that instead of being even keeled, and even DJ Smith said this yesterday, instead of being even keeled, this group rides the highs too high, and they rides the lows too low, and it's okay for media and fans to ride the roller coaster. That's fine. That as media, that's what we do. When times are tough, we go hard, and when it's riding high, everybody's great, right? Like it's when a team gets up 2-1 in a playoff series, they're riding all the momentum.
Yeah.
Well, it's not okay for the players to do that, or the coaching staff. And I think when Alfredson and got a firsthand look behind that bench, I think he started wondering about, how this was all being managed. And you're right, you could look at it as a conspiracy theory, I guess, but I just think once they brought in Jacques Martin, that was a message to the players that they really didn't believe in the coaching staff.
Bruce, what do you think the timeline is for some kind of permanency when it would come to the head coach?
I think there's been so much movement here, Richard, that it's not going to happen overnight. I think how do I put this? I think if they were going to hire any of these guys who got fired, I would say with the exception of Craig Berube, because I think Craig Berube can choose his own destination. I think they would have just gone out and gotten them. I think that Martin and Alfredson are going to be here for the rest of the year. I strongly believe that if Daniel Alfredson wants to be the next head coach of this team, then he can be. If he wants to make that kind of commitment. I personally don't think he wants to put himself in the line of fire and put himself in that situation.
Neither did Paul Coffey.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. But I do think that opportunity is available for Daniel Alfredson. I do know one thing. Jacques had no designs. When he came in here, he really just wanted to come in as a consultant. He had no designs or desire to go behind that bench. I think he wanted to be involved. This was his hometown. It was kind of an opportunity for his career to come full circle, and he came in and it was going sideways, and the snowball's rolling down the hill right now.
I would suggest now that Jacques has a job for life.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when you think of what he's put on the line, and the fact that he's going to fill that gap for now, that the next contract for him will be back in that consulting role, and be part of be a voice in the front office, correct?
Well, I think that's okay with him, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I'm just, this is not a case of that when Jacques Martin isn't the coach of the Ottawa Senators, that he's no longer part of the organization. That's my point.
yeah, no, for sure. I think they want that kind of voice around. They want that kind of experience. And look, Daniel Alfredson, one thing I do know from speaking to people over the last couple of days was Daniel Alfredson and Jacques Martin were a package deal. And they weren't going to, how do I put this? Jacques Martin was not going to be the interim head coach without Daniel Alfredson at his side. So when they called Daniel Alfredson Monday morning, that's why DJ Smith ran practice Monday, because they didn't have Daniel Alfredson tied up till late in the morning, and he was ready to go.
Bruce, do you think, is there, in your opinion, being there every day, is there an archetype of a coach that would work? Whether it's, I don't want to use the cliches of like a player's coach or a hard ass, but like if you could sort of design a coach from scratch, what would be the best coach for this particular group?
Okay, so this is gonna sound dumb, but Jacques Martin.
Wow.
Because and
But
because
but Jacques Martin not at 71 years old.
yeah, Jacques Martin 2004, yeah. Because Jacques Martin is going to demand that these guys play at both ends of the ice. And I think that's been the biggest issue for this team is, Daniel Alfredson was a 200-foot player, and he was a 200-foot player because that's what Jacques Martin demanded. And he never tried to get Jason Spezza to be a Selke Trophy winner, but he did try to get him to play in his own end a little bit. And I think that's been a big issue with this team this year is their best players have not been their best players. Brady Tkachuk is not playing as well defensively as he should be. Tim Stutzle's game has slipped off. I think, just off the top of my head, Richard, I would say Craig Berube would probably be, if you're looking at all the guys available, Craig Berube to me would be the guy that would probably be the best fit. But like I said earlier, I think that Craig Berube can write his own ticket. I don't know how to put this, but I don't think he has to take over the Ottawa Senators. Is that the right way?
Maybe, I mean, if you
go to a better team, I guess.
I was just going to say, if your assertion is correct, he would be smart to wait it out and to see what availabilities exist, and then probably pick a better situation than Ottawa.
Well, don't you guys think, like, see what happens in Tampa? John Cooper is,
Exactly.
going to be available. Yeah. See what happens in Carolina. All of a sudden, Rod Brindamore isn't what, he used to be, right?
Although I don't know if I'd want to coach for that owner, but yes, that's one to watch too. Yeah.
And the other situation here is the GM situation that's settled. I do believe that if you look at the short history we've had with Michael Andlauer and Steve Staios, though, certainly they brought in a trusted guy. Michael Andlauer brought in his trusted guy and Steve Staios. I certainly, and I've written this, I certainly believe that John Gruden, the head coach of the AHL's Toronto Marlies, who coached for them in Hamilton for 2 years, I think he's absolutely a candidate. I think they'll want to talk to him. I do think at some point they may want to talk to a guy like Berube. It just seems to me, if they wanted some of these guys, like if they wanted a Dean Evison or a Jay Woodcroft or or Gerard Gallant, Claude Julien, like Patrick Waugh, they would have went and got them.
The Patrick Waugh one is interesting because there is a groundswell around Patrick. And, has he gone back to, the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League and done what he was supposed to do? Yeah, he does. He has done that. He has gone back to prove that he can work with young people. This would open, this in theory might help the Senators sell some tickets across the river. You think? Although I
Yes.
don't go, I really don't go to hockey games to watch coaches. I go to hockey games to watch players. But at the same time, if there's a way to open up a bilingual market in Ottawa, Patrick Waugh makes a bit of sense, doesn't it?
Well, he does make some sense, and there's certainly a lot of people excited here when he was supposedly spotted in a bar in Canada at some point last
Yeah.
month.
He was having dinner with Kikuchi and Otani.
Yeah, he moved on the plane. But I just think if they had wanted him, they would have went and got him. Now, I could be completely wrong. And one of the things I think there's always, how do I put this? I think there's some concern with Patrick Waugh, because he'll want more power. And we all know that general managers don't want a coach who wants more power. I think that could be a stumbling block for him. Mind you, he did interview with Pierre Dorion in 2019. He was the last interview they did, and they said he was fantastic. Met with him in Montreal at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel for over 4 hours. And he did say at that point he just wanted to coach now. So if he comes back and he just wants to coach, that's fine. I've lived in Ottawa, my whole life pretty much since I was born in Montreal, but I've lived here since I was 5 years old. I'm not sure anything can get people across that bridge, John.
Really, huh?
Yeah, I'm not convinced that. I mean, I've listened for 30 years about this organization trying to make inroads in Ottawa and Gatineau.
Mm-hmm.
I think in 20 years, if I'm still here, we'll still be listening to them about trying to make inroads in Gatineau.